Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Alice Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, your host, Alice Badler, answers everyday questions with her unpredictable, interactive, spontaneous, and engaging style. You can easily ask your questions, share your thoughts, and join the conversation by calling into the show at Blog Talk Radio. Alice is waiting for you. From the smallest things to the deeply profound, the Ask Alice Show is the place to ask your questions and get real answers. Here's your host, Alice Badler.
Hello, everyone. As usual, it is such a thrill to have you here with me tonight. And as usual, I do hope all of you will join me in the conversation. I think you know the drill. If you would like to speak to me, callers, press 1 on your phone to get into the queue. And for those of you in the chat room, we all love to hear what you have to say. So do ask your questions and make your comments. And tonight, I would like to tell you about a man named Don Miguel Ruiz. Don Miguel was a brilliant surgeon in his native Mexico, and only a few years into his career, he was in a near-fatal accident. And, like many people who have faced a life-altering event, he decided he needed to take a look at his life. It is said that the greatest growth is born from those big challenges. I would have to agree with that. So he immersed himself in both the ancient teachings of his ancestors and those of the American Shaman Indians. Don Miguel shares what he learned with his first book, The 4 Agreements. This book gives 4 principles, or what he calls 4 agreements, to practice in order to create peace, love, and happiness in your life. What I especially love about his works is how he manages to combine his background as a scientist with the knowledge and wisdom he spent so many years studying. So what I'm going to do is to share with you the short description of each agreement from Don Miguel's book cover. And then, as we move further into the show, we can discuss the agreements in greater detail and how you can use them to transform your lives. The first agreement: be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. I would like to add something of my own here. We all know that old saying about sticks and stones. Well, it's not true. Words cut us very deeply. Agreement number 2. Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Agreement number 3. Don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. And I need to add something else here as well. Don't think for others, just ask them. And agreement number 4, always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best, and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. So trying to adhere to the 4 agreements 100% of the time is setting yourself up for failure. Don Miguel's purpose with the 4 agreements was to create an awakening from old belief systems and show people a new way to view the world. If you are able to adopt these principles as often as you can, however often that is, it will absolutely be one of the most life-changing things you will ever do. And as with all things I talk about, it takes paying attention to your actions and practice, practice, practice. There are no overnight miracles. So that's what's on my mind tonight. And now I would love to hear from you. So I am going to turn it over to our chief executive producer, the ever wonderful Andy Lyons. Good evening, Andy.
Hello, Alice. Hello, listeners. I'm really embracing the 4 agreements tonight. I love this topic, Alice. What did you to focus on these wonderful ways of being?
Well, it's actually an interesting story. I was with my sister, actually, and a friend of hers, and I don't remember what me and her were talking about, just sister stuff. And she said something, and I took it personally. And then I said something, and she made assumptions about what I was thinking, and I wasn't. And the man sitting there just sort of looked at us, and he laughed. And he said, "Have either of you heard of the 4 agreements?" This was many years ago. And we both looked at him, and we said no. So he told us the 4 agreements and told us what we did. And immediately I was struck just by the power. I mean, he just listed them, didn't go into the description. And so I ran out and bought Don Miguel's book. And the power of it is truly unbelievable. I do practice to the best of my ability the 4 agreements, and it has transformed my life. So I thought I would like to share that.
I'm just curious because this is such a fascinating book, and for listeners, you can find the 4 agreements listed all over the place online. But Alice, you're such a curious person. I love that you went out, you bought the book, you looked for a way to make your life richer and more meaningful and less painful, because when we take things personally, it hurts. Did you study the book on your own, or are there groups? Can people join a group to study the 4 agreements?
I actually had been probably halfway through my journey of learning, and I actually just read the book on my own. And that was enough for me. I probably didn't even need the book. I just heard them. Be impeccable in your word. Don't take anything personal. Don't assume anything. Do your best. And it just resonated with me so strongly. And, in his book, he goes into obviously a lot more detail about the human condition, how we got this way, why we're this way, how to not be this way. But I was able to do this particular work on my own. And I think this particular work, one of the grand things about it is people can do this on their own. Not all work you can do on your own. This you can.
Well, my introduction was my lifelong friend, Nancy, introduced me to the 4 agreements, Alice. And I heard about it for years. Seriously, I think from the minute it came out, and she did it with her church group and really dove deep, and I, as a good friend, was like, yes, okay, good. Then someone called me and said, "Hey, Don Miguel's going to be in town. Come see him with me. I have tickets." And I thought, wow, I better read the book before I see him live. And so as I read the book, it's like, what took me so long? I was supportive of my friend, but I never started practicing them myself, and they make so much sense. Tom in the chat room said, "I had to learn years ago not to take things personally and to be kinder to myself," which, wow, not taking things personally from what someone else has said, Alice, but also from what you said to yourself.
Yeah, and that's actually very big in all the agreements, is about ourself as well. That's amazing. Tom did it. I'd like to know if he actually had heard of 4 agreements or just figured that one out on his own. That's amazing.
Let us know in the chat room, Tom. And then
let us know.
And then Jessica said, "I have found that if I don't allow my mind to cut myself down, I do feel better. I try to apply it to other people too." And again, there's that common theme. It's that little voice in our head that seems to be saying some not impeccable words. What are your thoughts, Alice?
Well, that's true. It's interesting that all things seem to come back to us from the same kind of place, not the same place. But the reason that we do get angry at ourselves, the reason we do judge ourselves, all of that, and actually even the reason we judge other people all the time. We judge everything all the time. So the reason that occurs is because throughout our lifetime, from the time we're young, we believe what people tell us. We believe the opinions of others. We believe what we're taught. We believe the way we're supposed to behave. And soon, Don Miguel actually calls those agreements. Those are the agreements we believe. And as the years pass, they become more and more ingrained in ourselves. And it all comes back to that. So in practicing these, and again, we can get into more detail about each one, but as you practice these, there's less and less of that. Soon you get to the real you. Who am I? You know, what's my opinion about myself? What's my opinion about whoever? So that's, very potent, what you
said. It really is.
And
I want to remind folks who are listening, thank you so much for listening tonight, and be sure to hit the number 1 on your dial pad if you'd like to speak with Alice or ask a question or add your thoughts about the 4 agreements.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of people have never heard of the 4 agreements. I never heard about it, which is interesting, being 8 years into doing all this work. It's one of those books that we don't, for some reason, hear a lot about. We don't hear a lot about this man. So I think this is sort of a new concept to people. And I think they hear that and they go, how can that transform my life? Which
one is the most powerful one for you, Alice?
Well, interestingly enough, the one that I found the most powerful is the not taking things personally. That's the one I chose to work on first because I think I, got hurt a lot. I felt hurt a lot. And when I was able to, I would say at this point, 90-something% of the time, I really don't take things personally. And wow, it is so freeing. I find that really powerful. First of all of these 4 agreements are very challenging because what we're doing is we're challenging our lifetime of a belief system. We really are. By not taking things personally, we're challenging everything we know about ourselves, every reaction we have. So it's not an easy thing. But I'll tell you, no. And
Tom says it for everybody who's wondering, well, how did Tom do it? He figured it out on his own.
Well, yay for you, Tom. I think sometimes life events create us figuring some very powerful things out for our own. Good for you, Tom. I love that.
Well, we have a caller. Do you want to take that now?
Sure.
Oh, good. We have Jane calling in.
From?
Well, she'll have to answer that for you.
Jane?
Hi. This is Jane from Chicago.
Oh, Jane. And
we're breaking up. I can't catch that, but nice to hear you, Alice, on the phone. This is Jane. We've chatted on and off over Facebook for a while, and I wanted to make sure and call in and talk about some of my thoughts on this subject.
I would love that. Can you hear her at this moment?
Yeah, now I can.
I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jane.
Well, I was just actually you were just talking about the one that I struggle with, which is not taking things personally. So it's good to hear some tips as to how to continue to work on that, because that's a big one for me. I struggle with that, and so that's something that I've made a commitment to work on. because I think it is very freeing to be able to walk away from anything and say this has nothing to do with me. For me, that takes me off the victim list. So I'm working on this a lot. But I wanted to talk about being impeccable with your word, because that's one of my top things that I look at, and I was wondering if you could give me your thoughts on it, actually.
In what particular regard?
Well, for me, it's my let's say it's my moral anchor, if you will. It's something that I find that I talk to my kids a lot about this, about keeping true to your word, and to me, it's the one thing that just it's a constant. It doesn't go away if you work at it. Like, for example, health, youth, beauty, finances, relationships, everything comes and goes. But if you have your word and you have that to count on, you can always start from there. So for me, that's really important, that people can trust what I have to say and that they know I'll follow through, and that it's something that to me is an important, I guess, statement about myself, if you will.
Okay, so it's not something you struggle with. You're just curious about.
No, it's become. Yeah, it's not something that I struggle with. I was wondering what I don't struggle with it because it becomes. It's just a habit. It's something that I naturally do. I do struggle with taking things personally, but I was wondering just what your thoughts on what it means to you, I guess.
Well, being impeccable with your word is, I think it's very important. And one of the things I think people don't understand, you probably do, Jane, is being impeccable with your word goes far beyond making a promise and keeping it. It goes far beyond, I want to say being in integrity, but of course your integrity. But when we speak, when we say something, sometimes we really have to pay attention, because without realizing it, we harm people all the time with our words. We shame people. It's really very potent. It's a huge one. And I don't think most people understand how powerful the word is. And if I may, just to explain to people quite how powerful the word is, I'm going to give you a very harsh but real-life example of how brutal and important our word is. There was a man in Germany who, just this one man, with his word, was able to convince an entire nation to go to war and create horrific atrocities. I think we all know who I'm talking about. And that came to me because in the face of what just happened in Paris, that also comes from the word. These people, the terrorists, are born into hate. They are born into the word hate, and they are fear-based. That is how powerful the word is. And it's just as powerful on the other end. Speaking with integrity, speaking with love, watching that we don't harm other people with our words. And that's oftentimes, as I said, done very unintentionally. And I think that is the hardest one for most people, because you really have to pay attention. It's so easy if your child is dancing around the room, having a blast, and you have a headache, to just tell your child to shut up. And here your child is having fun. That's not being impeccable in your word. So it's a very, very powerful and one of the most difficult, I think, of the 4 agreements. But
well,
yeah,
that's a very good point. And what I have found for my own, I went back to school, and what I found is that it dovetails exactly into what you're talking about. is what I'm trying to do is be more of an active listener, because with that, I don't get myself into so much trouble because I'm actually actively listening and I can hear what somebody is saying. And that gives me time to really think about what I might say in response versus immediately thinking up my response in my head and not really listening to what you have to say. So thank you for that. That's like you say, it goes much deeper than your, a promise, the basics. And I just wanted to talk to you live, Alice, and just say hello.
I did too. I would love to help you with the don't take things personally, as long as I've got you on the phone.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, because that was the first one I chose to work on, because I also had the same problem you did. I took a lot of things personally. So what I did was I just chose to what I call act as if. Act as if. When you act as if enough times, it becomes true. So when somebody would say something to me that was hurtful, I would just decide to act as if it wasn't, even though it was. Okay. And I would not react. It's when you don't react. Because normally that's what we do as humans, right? Somebody says something, you take it personally, it hurts, you react. But if you act as if it doesn't, take a little pause, step back, don't react. And soon, you're going to find you take less things personally. It's a little trick. So you might want to try that.
That's a really good, that's a very good trick. And I will definitely try that, because I find myself triggered, especially like with family members and things of that nature, where they'll say something that really maybe isn't meant to be anything at all, but being a sensitive person, I'll immediately, take offense when in reality that's not their intention at all. So by stepping back, it gives me time to reflect and not to, immediately come back with a response. And if they did mean something hurtful, perhaps it's not on me, it's on them.
It's always on them.
You know what?
That's the whole point of that agreement.
Yeah.
It's always on them. And you said something very interesting. When somebody says something that hurts us, it's usually because it did trigger an old wound. But even if it was intentional, it's really not about us, because they've got their old wounds. And maybe you could look at it that way. They said, it could be anything. It's happened to me. I walk into something, I have a date, and he doesn't like what I'm wearing, and he's not very nice about it, let's say. It has nothing to do with me. I don't know what got triggered. Maybe, the last girl that dumped him had a dress that looked like that. I don't know, but I don't care. I don't care anymore, because it's never about me if I'm impeccable in my word.
Exactly.
And that's the truth. When you're impeccable in your word, there's nothing you can do that when somebody else says something to you is ever about you, right?
You know what? You're exactly right. They do connect. They absolutely connect. And that is very powerful to remember. And even more important for me to continue to work on this not taking things personally, because I think like you say, it's going to be very freeing for me.
Oh, it's incredibly freeing. It's amazing. You're going to be, you could do this in less than a month, Jane. I can feel your energy.
That would be great.
Just practice it. Even if 50% of the time, which is a lot, you could just not react. You have to walk away. What's going to happen is within a week or two, 50% of the time, you're not going to even feel it. And then you're going to want to work a little more. Soon you'll be like me, up to 90-something%, which is fine. That's a great place to be.
I will definitely choose to work on that. And I just want to let you know that your show is inspiring. I'm so happy that I've been able to at least participate a little bit, and so happy to hear your voice.
I am happy to hear yours, because I know exactly who you are on Facebook, and I'm very thrilled you called in. I really appreciate that a great deal. It's an honor to have you as a friend.
No, my pleasure, and it's an honor to have your friendship as well. And keep doing your great job, Alice. You really do a lot of good, and you touch a lot of people's lives. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Jane. I appreciate that. Thank you for calling in. A lot of great points got made on your call.
Thank
you.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Good.
That was great, Alice.
Yeah, that was a great call. She brought up a lot of got us to dig a little deeper.
Well, I think, too, social media provides a lot of opportunity to practice many of these, all 4 of these agreements, because we can so easily assume someone is meaning something else. We can decide that what somebody said is something we're going to take personally. We can easily not use our own impeccable word. I mean, social media just provides so much rich opportunity. Do you agree?
Oh, I'm shaking my head and trying not to shake my head too hard so you all don't hear it rattling around. But social media, there's a great side of social media, which of course is all the wonderful people we get to meet. But social media is absolutely, if people want to see it, look at your news feed and you will see every single one of these 4 agreements being broken left and right. And that's not such a bad idea. I don't like to look at negative stuff. So usually I turn off, I don't follow those people. But it's great because if you just look at your news feed and start pointing it out, wow, that person's not impeccable, their word. You see fights going on. Serious arguments are going on in the middle of a thread. So people are taking things personally and assuming things left and right on that one. And that's pretty huge. That was a great point, Andy. It was a great, great point. What we can do here, if we don't have any pressing questions or a phone, do we have a phone call?
We do. We have Jill calling from Lake Forest. You see, this time, Alice, I was more with it, and I actually asked Jill where she was from. Isn't that great?
Oh, you are amazing, Andy Lyons. Jill from Lake Forest.
Hello, Alice.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
I am very well, and you were just talking about social media and the power of it, and I thought Jane just called in from Chicago, and I said, you know what, I haven't heard Alice's voice before, and I see her all over the place on Facebook, so I'm going to go ahead and call Alice, too.
Well, I love that. It seems people, we need a little time for people to be brave enough, and I love hearing your voices. So I would love to hear what you've got to say about all this.
Well, I'm familiar with the 4 agreements. I have followed alternative healing and holistic methods really since my 20s, and I'm in my 40s now. And I think accepting that you do the best that you can in the moment that you have, doing that and letting it be enough has been a significant peaceful factor in my life that really didn't come into play until I became a single mother. And there are truly times where my best is not what I would want it to be. It's not.
You mean when she became a single mother, you felt that way?
Yeah, definitely. As a single mother, I mean, there are a lot of things that my child doesn't particularly have, like a second parent. It's always he and I. And sometimes I feel like, I work full time as well. I'm financially responsible for everything. And I am solely responsible for him. And some days I'm a nurse, so I may work a 12-hour shift. And my son's been up all day too. And we're tired when we get home. And sometimes having cereal for dinner is okay. I know it sounds bad, but when it's 8:30 at night and you haven't been home all day and it's the first time you've seen your child, you can't I may not be able to fix him a fabulous, healthy meal, but he eats something. And that's the best I can do in that moment.
So what you're saying to me is you're seeing the power in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was going to say what you just described to me is absolutely you are doing the best you can.
Exactly.
You absolutely are. Everything you just described to me is a perfect example of you doing the best you can. You have no reason to feel any self-judgment, any guilt, anything. I'm hearing a woman, I'd be real proud of myself if I were you. I think you're doing a beautiful job.
The difference is in the 20 years between when I first started to look at myself in my 20s and now I'm in my mid-40s. In my 20s, I would have beat myself up about this. I wouldn't have accepted that as my best. I would have driven myself to give more. And in doing that, I would have taken away from the healing time that I need for myself. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't serve anyone else. And it took me probably about a good 10 years of looking at that and trying to overdraw myself and then becoming very tired. I would go through periods of a few weeks where I just really didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to interact with people. And I would need to go through those periods to heal myself because I'd overdrawn the well.
So how are you able to make the shift to be good with that you are doing your best? How are you able to make that shift for people listening who feel the same as you once felt and still feel that way? Do you think it's the holistic and work you've been doing for so long?
I really do. I have, in addition to being an RN, I'm also an apprentice healing touch practitioner, and that's an energy medicine modality. So I pay much more attention to my intuition now. I listen to my body better. When my mind starts to tell me I'm tired, and my mind will tell me that by becoming confused. And not, just confused as in, I can't remember, granted, we all walk into a room and don't know what we got in there for, but when it happens repeatedly, your mind's tired. And you still haven't, you've gone to the same room 5 times and you still don't know what you're in there for. Your mind's tired. Your mind's telling you to stop. And I would not listen to that when I was younger. I would reach for more. And in reaching for more and taking for more, I depleted myself for extended periods of time. And that leads to depression as well. Depression is a horrible thing that will sneak in when you criticize yourself and you don't accept that you're doing your best with every moment.
Everything you said is very powerful, and I hope everyone listening really heard you. Because what you're talking about is things I've been talking about on the show, things we'll continue to talk about, which is the first thing is self, taking care of self. But yes. I think a lot of people don't pay attention to those little slight messages that you were able to see. It meant something. That's very powerful.
What your body will do for you, unfortunately, because all illness, and I'm starting to learn this as well, starts in your energy field. It starts in a way that something feels off, but you're not physically ill yet. So you'll ignore it, and maybe you'll have a stomach ache or a headache or something it'll kick up a gear. But you ignore it, and you keep going, and you don't address the emptiness that's in your spirit. And eventually, when you're so disconnected with your soul's purpose, your body physically manifests disease. And you end up with a cancer or a heart condition. It's a disconnection of purpose.
And that's a whole topic. That's a topic for a whole show, because that is absolutely been proven. What you're talking about is how much illness comes out of what's going on in our minds. It's real. The illness is real, but it starts there.
Very real.
Of course it's real.
Your mind starts a cascade of chemicals when it experiences stress that will shut down your parasympathetic central nervous system, which is your resting system. It's where your body heals. And your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. That's what's activated by those chemicals. And it's an on or off switch. You cannot heal in a stressed state. You just can't. Your body cannot do it. When you activate the sympathetic, the fight or flight, you cannot heal. And so many people live in elevated stress levels, and they don't even know. They become accustomed to it.
They might know, but they don't. What they don't know is there's no way out. And that's why we spread the word. People like you and I, Lynn.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Definitely. Yes. Why
you do spread
I do
the
what
word.
I do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If I can hop in for just a second, Jill, I have to say, just the power of your statement of doing your best with your child. I think every parent, every mother worries so much about, am I doing enough? And can have regrets and can have self-judgment, and the honesty and the acceptance and the love that you showed for yourself in telling that story was so powerful. I know you opened hearts for those listening.
Well,
and I want to thank you.
There are moments that I fail. Mm-hmm. And I have to sit and I have to reflect and work to do better, because really I am all he has. And that can be very overwhelming at
I
times.
bet.
To solely be, and nurses, in spite of what people may think, nurses do not do it for the money. It's not.
Well, I want to jump in too, and I'm sorry I called you Lynn. That's your last name. I heard Lynn before Joe. But Dr. Phil, who I really love, I quote him every once in a while, but he has a wonderful saying. He says, you either get it right or you learn. He doesn't use the word fail.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't love that word. And I've had people say to me, well, if it's not a success, it's a failure. And I said, no, it's not. It's not a success. It doesn't make it a failure. So I think many of us can really relate to you, Jill, being a single parent as well. And I think we have a lot of single parents. And it is beautiful. I agree with Andy. For you to open your heart and to show people that they are doing their best and not to berate themselves when they don't do it perfect, whatever that means.
Well, I think that people think, as a nurse, and I'm a home health nurse, so I go into people's homes and I see how they live. I think a lot of times we don't think that horrible things are happening to the people that we know or that are in our world. We don't think that we know anybody who's a hoarder. We don't think we know anybody who's a drug addict. We don't think we know any of those people because we live in our own little world. And that's not true. The people that live right next door may be having huge problems that nobody has any idea about. It happens right beside you. People have all sorts of crosses to bear, and it's so important when we interact with each other to keep that in mind, that there is something that you may have to give to somebody that you don't even know, that you give in kindness, that impacts them, and they carry with them forward. And you had talked about it, Alice, with the power of words, and with Hitler and his hateful words, what he was able to do. And you're very right, because love is more powerful. And if we can use our words with kindness, love, and compassion, I firmly believe that we can make changes. And it starts in our own world. It starts with the people around us.
Well, I absolutely believe that. I have a million favorite sayings, so I hate to use that word, my favorite sayings. One of them really is that we absolutely can change the world one person at a time. Absolutely. You know,
I work hard in my little corner.
Well, you know, because when you do it one person at a time, you're not really. There's that snowball effect that comes into play.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Well, you changed people's lives tonight, Jill.
Yeah, Jill, a lot of powerful stuff there. I think you just gave us topics for 3 shows. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alice. I appreciate that. That we're together on Facebook. I'm sure I'll see you there later.
Absolutely.
And,
I'm so glad you called in and shared with us. So much wisdom, so much insight. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you do.
Please do call again.
Yes, ma'am. Take care.
All right. Good night, Jill.
Good night.
Oh, Alice, that was delicious, and it opened up a wonderful conversation in the chat room, which Robin had been feeling so badly because she yelled at her. She called baby Baz, and she didn't want to, but sometimes it can be hard not to yell. Whether in this case, he slammed a big toy car in her face, and then Jessica shared, hey, parents make mistakes, Robin, but it doesn't have to be damaging. Just be honest when you do make a mistake with him. It will open a line of communication. And then Tom jumped in and said, yeah, don't be sad. Just keep working at it. None of us are perfect, but we do have the ability to learn and grow. What an extraordinary chat room you have, Alice Badler.
I was going to say we could have a panel. We could call it the Ask Panel Show. It's amazing. And one of the things I'd like to say to Robin is, if you recall earlier when I was speaking, I absolutely said, remember these words, when you try to do anything 100% of the time, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Exactly what just happened to you is what's going to happen. None of us can do anything 100% of the time. So when we practice anything, if we just practice it, if we get to 50% of the time, that's pretty powerful. 50% of the time is extremely powerful. And no, yelling at your baby once in a while is absolutely not going to damage your child. So,
and I know having what we used to call like mummy monkey fits or whatever, if I would just lose it, and then I'd look at my guys and say, oh gosh, I'm going to go put myself in timeout. That was wrong.
Well, that's one of the joys of when they get a little older, because I know baby Boz is just a little guy still. But one of the joys when our children get a little bit older is we get to teach them how to say, I'm sorry. And that's what you do. That's all you have to do. And that's being impeccable in your word. It is. When your actions are off a little bit and you just apologize, you're now in integrity again.
Yeah.
You make mistakes.
I have a question about integrity, Alice, but I just want to remind callers that if they'd like to chat with you, they can by pressing the number 1 on their dial pad. And as you know, Alice loves to hear your voice, so feel free to do so. But speaking of integrity, because Marsha Weeder, is that how you say her last name? She's a wonderful person, coach out in the world. She talks about being in integrity with yourself. And so often, we're in integrity in the world, but we'll say to ourselves, oh, I'm going to do this and not do it. Or I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to be better at that. And then we don't do it. And her thing about integrity was either do it or dump it. And I think that goes a little to what you were saying about integrity and about practicing. If you can, do it 50% of the time, you'll see shifts in your life.
What does she mean by practice it or dump it?
Well, it means that if you're going to go to the gym 3 days a week, go to the gym 3 days a week. You make that promise with yourself. And that's being in integrity with yourself. But if you're not going to do it, if you say, oh, yes, I'm going to the gym, and then you blow it off, you're actually blowing off like you would with a friend by making a commitment that you're going to do something and then you don't. So it's one thing to be in integrity with those outside yourself, but to be in integrity with your own commitments to yourself. Whether it's I'm going to meditate or work out or eat better, either, do it, make the commitment, or just say, you know what, I'm not going to work out this week, period. And then you're in integrity with yourself. Does that make sense, Alice?
Yeah, I think that's fabulous. And I love that. But I think what happens is people's intention is to go to the gym 3 times. So when Monday comes and they don't go, and then they decide they're going to go Tuesday and they don't go, I would not say they're out of integrity with themselves. To me, that's a little different, but I would totally say that people are much harder on themselves. And yes, we definitely make promises to ourselves we don't keep, where we would always do that with another person. So maybe the answer is to not make promises to yourself that are too hard to keep. Maybe decide you'll go to the gym once a week. Because if for 3 weeks running, you say you're going to go 3 times, and the first time you don't go, you blow off the whole week, maybe you're asking a little too much of yourself. Give yourself a break. Decide, I'm going to go 1 time. Maybe you decide, I'm going to go on a diet. You put yourself on, I don't know, whatever diet you put yourself on. And the 3rd day in, you're starving, you can't do it. So you break your entire diet and you say, oh, I can't do it. I don't think it's that. I think you're being too hard on yourself. Choose a different diet. Choose something that's more aligned with what you can actually do so you won't feel hungry. I think that we each put much more pressure on ourselves than we would on a friend. We expect more from ourselves. So we set ourselves up to fail. Start out easy.
I love that advice.
Well, thank you.
So, Alice, we have another caller, and it's Bart from Morrisville, North Carolina.
Well, I know Bart from Facebook, too. I love all these Facebook people calling. Yay. Bart, how are you? I want to hear your voice.
Fine, Alice. How are you?
I'm wonderful. And I love you on Facebook. You have, Bart also has a very cute group that's about coffee and sunshine words.
Friends,
yeah.
family.
Just always has a delightful, beautiful thing to say. So what do you have to share with us, Bart?
Oh, let's see. There's one. I don't know if getting back to a previous show, you were talking about the negative thoughts in our heads. Mm-hmm. And I've been reading a book, and I think I told you about it, called Crash the Chatterbox.
Yes, and I keep saying I'm going to get it, but I've got 10 on my list I haven't read yet, but yes.
Oh, and it's very interesting about the whole book. And
is it Crash the Chatterbox? Is that the name of the part?
It's called Crash the Chatterbox. It's written by my church pastor, Pastor Stephen Furtick.
Can you get that on Amazon, Bart?
Yes, it's on Amazon.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. I bought it at my church store, Elevation Church, and all of us. We're not immune to these negative voices saying, "Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you can't do that." But the only 2 voices that say, you can do anything, you have this, are mostly yourself and God.
So for you, Bart, are you able to get rid of some of that negative thinking? Has that booked and your church helped you in some ways, or do you struggle a bit?
It has, but there are times when I'm having probably a bad morning, and I just hear the little chatter in my head saying, "Wow, you're an idiot."
And what do you do with that?
To me, I just go out, take a walk, meditate at Lake Norman, and just come back, and my mind is free and clear.
Well, that's wonderful. So you have found a way to get rid of your negative thoughts and the noise in your head, which is huge, very important.
Oh yes, and you were asking, has Elevation Church helped me as well? Absolutely.
I think it's wonderful to find a group that you can resonate with and do the work with. It's sometimes a little lonely doing it by yourself, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, especially when you just moved from another state. You don't know anyone other than family. It's good to go to a place where you meet people you can relate to, and they have similar issues of their own. So it's good to just talk to each other. Through that, I made some great new friends.
Well, I think that's all wonderful. I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Bart. I do. I'm so happy you called in. So nice to hear your voice.
It's my pleasure.
And please do call in again. I love hearing my Facebook friends' voices. It's absolutely beautiful. So thank you for that, Bart. I appreciate it. You have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
That brought up a very interesting point for me, that where he was talking about just having a group to share whatever work you want to do. And I happen to love on the internet, it's called meetup.com, MEETUP.com. And they're everywhere. It's all over the country now. I'm not sure who started it. It's brilliant. But what people do, anybody, I could do it, you start a group up that interests you. So maybe I could start a group up about the 4 agreements, or I could start a dog lovers group up, or whatever. And anybody can join the group. And you meet great people. And if you live in a big city, there's probably a group for any possible thing you could ever want. But it's a great way to meet people who have the same interests and passions as you. And as we talk about a lot of inner work and a lot of challenging work, there are absolutely groups that you can work with, that are sharing the same desires. So I think that's, anybody listening, I don't get paid when I say something. I just love this stuff, so I like to share. But I would
That's a great
like
idea,
to say,
Alice. That's a great idea.
I do love.
Yeah,
I do love
great,
Meetup.
and it's a great idea. You can even just reach out to 3 other buddies and say, "Hey, you want to read this book, 4 Agreements? I heard Alice Badler talk about it, and I think maybe we could go deeper with this if we had a group and brought conversation to it." I think that's a great idea, Alice.
It's a great idea. It's your little book club, and then you discuss each thing and how it impacts you. It's a wonderful idea.
And support each other in the practice, because it's every day, every minute of the day, it's a choice and it's a practice. And I can honestly say that some days I don't want to practice my 4 agreements at all. Maybe I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. But for the most part, I like to be in alignment with the 4 agreements.
Well, there are many moments where I don't want to practice anything. So we are but mere mortals, and I don't care who you are and how much work you've done. There are moments where you just want to I just want to be a drama queen for a few minutes. I want to embrace that feeling, and that's okay too, because in that moment, I'm doing exactly what I want, so I'm doing my best. There you go.
Or sometimes you have to have that good pity party. And,
you know what? Sometimes you do, but I think if you have to put a timer on it, that's all.
Yes.
Say, I'm going to get to, have a little pity party for 10 minutes, set a timer, and do whatever I have to do, or a day, or whatever you need. It's okay. It's really all okay. Doing this sort of work is very challenging. But once you start, it's hard to look back because you know what's possible.
That's
And
right.
according to Don Miguel, he actually says that he feels it's very courageous to do this work because what we're doing is we're challenging every belief. We're challenging our entire belief system when we don't take things personally, when we don't make assumptions, when we're constantly impeccable in our word and we're doing our best, because we're not really taught to live that way. That's not how we brought up. So it's very challenging, but it's worth it. I think it would be absolutely great. In fact, what I'd like to suggest is that everybody listening in on this call, just pick one. Pick one of the 4 agreements. And you can, my monologue will be up on LinkedIn tomorrow night, but all you have to do is Google it. Like I said, I read it right off the cover book, so it's everywhere. Just Google it. Just pick one agreement, and just for a week, let's just practice it. And what I think would be really cool is those of us in the Facebook group, if we would share that with each other. And I'm going to pick one too. How about you, Andy?
I'm absolutely going to pick one. It's going to be don't make assumptions.
That's a great one.
Or like for some women, we're raised to be very polite, and you're not going to ask a question sometimes because you don't want to be rude, when in reality you're trying to get further details and understanding. And so when you make an assumption, you lose the opportunity to communicate on a deeper level. And then, of course, misunderstandings happen, drama happens, and we have in our household, we call it don't assume, because that makes an ass out of you and me. Say assume, A-S-S-U-M-E.
I got it. I actually was going to pick that one too, so I find that quite amusing. Because, I mentioned something earlier that I have had a tendency to do, and this year I've started really working on this, and I believe I need more work. So I'm going to work on that. But when I mentioned earlier about how we think for others, if we pay attention to that, it is unbelievable how often we decide what the other person is thinking, and we're almost always wrong. Have you noticed that, Andy?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we just decide with we'll say something and they might look at us with a blank face because they're thinking about it. So we decide what they're thinking. And guess what? We react to what we decide they're thinking.
Right.
It's a little nuts.
It is, and it becomes a spinning circle.
A spinning circle. So I would love that if everybody would join me in that. And those of you who do not belong to the Facebook group, feel free to join so we can hear what
and how do they find the Facebook group? How do they find the Facebook group out?
Well, it's facebook.com/group/AskAliceShow. Yay, I got it right.
Yay. Yeah, I'd love to do a quick shout out to, we have so many great people in the chat room tonight.
I'd love to hear.
Say a big howdy do to Jamie and Laura and Robin and Shelley and Jessica and Tom. They're having a great group session.
I love that.
And sharing and supporting each other and using their impeccable words. It's lovely, lovely, lovely. A great crowd in the chat room.
I think we started a meetup group in the chat room. They don't even need us. They're just going along, and I love our chatters. We definitely have a great group.
Tom just said, "Yay us!"
Yeah, I love Tom. Well, I love them all. I love our people. I call them our people. Sorry, our peeps. They're our peeps. So is there any last comments that you'd like to share with us, Andy, from the chat before?
No, everybody's in agreement with the 4 agreements, and they've been very helpful to each other this evening, and the conversation's great, and the phone calls are quiet now, so I think we have a wonderful show ready for replay.
Yeah, I like this show. And if I may, I'm not sure. I just want to talk about next week's show I'll try to be really quick. As most of you know, next Wednesday night is the night before Thanksgiving. I almost said the night before Christmas. It's the night before Thanksgiving. And we had contemplated doing a replay, but it occurred to me that I cannot be the only American who's not cooking. So we've decided to do a show, and I wanted to do something a little different. I thought we'd have a little fun. So the reason I'm telling you is so you'll know in advance and come prepared. What we're going to do is we're going to all talk about some fun story from our lives, some grand memory or a laugh out loud moment, anything. There's got no monologue. We're just going to have some fun. So I would like any of you who plan to be there, you've got a week to come up with a story, because I've got at least 10 already. And unless you want to hear me chatter on for an hour, I suggest you come prepared, because I would like to hear your stories. So
I love that.
Yeah, that would be fun, don't you think?
Oh my gosh! And to clarify, that's November 5th, 2015, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And Shelley's asking, is the story to be related to Thanksgiving?
Well, it's interesting because obviously Thanksgiving is all about gratitude. And my intention is to do a show about gratitude, but I've chosen not to do it on Thanksgiving because I think we should be in gratitude every day. So I'm the rebel. But I felt that I don't want people to tell stories about what they're grateful for. We're all going to be doing that on Thanksgiving Day. Mm-hmm. I think just the very nature, there's no gloom and doom in this show. It's only fun stories or beautiful memories is being in gratitude, is it not?
Absolutely.
How can we not be in gratitude when we're talking about something beautiful from our heart? I'm getting all excited. I have like too many. I'm going to have to pick a few, my few favorites.
You and Tom. And yes to Shelley, absolutely. It's a fun story about Thanksgiving. Absolutely. But whatever makes your heart sing. And to those listening to the replay, I also want to remind all of you to please to follow Alice right here on Blog Talk Radio. There's a follow button. And this way you will get notices of upcoming shows. Okay. And that's so wonderful. It's so handy to have that extra reminder that, oh, Alice is going live soon and it's the Thanksgiving show and I have a great story.
Yes, and I agree. If your great story is about Thanksgiving, bring it on. So, Tom, it's not about cake or shopping.
Oh, yeah, no,
I know my friends a little too well. Okay, so I guess with that, we'll wrap it up.
Absolutely.
You have anything else to share with us, my gorgeous Andy?
Oh, no, except that it's always an honor to share space and time with you, my Queen Alice Badler, and your wonderful listeners and participants in the chat room. I've learned so much, and I feel such deep gratitude every time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And again, I want to thank all of you who are listening. I think we had a really super great show tonight, and I'm very excited about it because, as usual, we couldn't have done it without you guys. And I really appreciate all of you who called in and our beautiful chatters who have now, we've totally lost you. You're off in space somewhere. But I love all the fun you're having. And I really do feel honored that you chose to be with me tonight. And I appreciate each and every one of you so dearly. I really hope you know how much I love you all. So we're going to do our Facebook thing. Everyone's going to pick one agreement. I'm going to haunt you. So with that, I will say adieu. And I wish you all so much love and positive energy as you walk through your days.
Thank you for tuning in to another lively conversation on the Ask Alice Show. Alice loves to connect with her listeners, so please join the Ask Alice Show Facebook group, where you can keep the conversation going and post questions for future shows. And be sure to stay tuned in to the show by clicking the follow button right here on Blog Talk Radio, and by subscribing to the Ask Alice Show YouTube channel. If you have a high-quality product or service you'd like to advertise with the Ask Alice Show audience, please email Alice's assistant, Rachel, at info@AskAliceShow.com. Until next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, keep asking those questions.